Hello and welcome to the bonus sheet portion of the Avatar Limited set review. In this video, I'll be going over all of the cards on the bonus sheet and how good I think they're going to be in the upcoming limited environment. The bonus sheet for this set, I think, is a little rarer than some of the previous bonus sheets have been. I don't know the exact details on it. I don't love going into like the exact like, oh, the bonus sheet appears at this frequency, but a lot of the cards that you're going to see in this video, there's a lot of misses on this bonus sheet. It's very similar, I feels like, to the Wilds of Eldraine one, where there's some really good hits, um, and there's a lot of misses, and there's not a ton of like mediocre cards. So that's kind of going to be a lot of what this is today. If you haven't been here before, these are the 5 tiers I use to evaluate the cards. Tier 1, of course, good. Tier 5 is bad. Feel free to take a look at what those tiers mean. And we're just going to get started with Brought Back. White, for an instant, choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn, return them to the battlefield tapped. Obviously, this is just too hard to enable consistently. These reanimate effects are already kind of suspect. This one's double pipped. It's just not really like a thing that you want to be trying to do. Um, I don't think it's like the worst card ever printed, but I just don't. I mean, I think this does nothing too often for it to be good. um, Mayor Tong of Chin Village, 1 and a white for a 1/3. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. So this is Drannith Magistrate reprint. The interesting thing with this is Airbend is really, really good with this, right? Like you play this and then you airbend something and they can't cast it. That's really strong. The problem is it's a 2 mana 1/3, and although that's kind of a powerful thing to do, it's still not like the reality where they can't remove this for the whole game doesn't really exist. Like at some point they're just going to remove this, and yes, if it eats a removal spell, you're probably pretty happy. But this isn't like doing a ton on the board. It's not really attacking or blocking very well. I think this is fine. I just think it requires like a ton of work to actually be good. I think people are going to be like, "Oh man, this is like a sicko like synergy thing I can do," and they're going to kind of get lost in that, and it's just not really that good. Um, like I think it's fine. I think it's fine, and that's sort of how I feel about it. And I've rated it low. I think it's going to be taken too high, and it's probably not going to win all that much, given where it's selected. Empty City Ruse, single white for a sorcery. Target opponent skips all combat phases of their next turn. This is just not good enough in limited. There's not really any combos you can do with it, and just basically having fog for a turn is not a good card. I'm just not really super interested in talking more about it. The Mechanist Tactical Tinker, 2 and a white for a 3/3. It has Vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, untap each other artifact creature you control, and you can pay 3 and a white to tap it to create a 5/5 colorless vehicle artifact token named Zeppelin with Flying and Crew 3. So, this is just a 3 mana 3/3 Vigilance, which is already a pretty good rate. And then you can just eventually start making like big Zeppelins, which aren't that good. But the fact that you can just do it on a 3 mana 3/3 Vigilance is just really good to begin with. Again, like the upfront rate isn't too bad. Yes, the vehicles are pretty hard to crew consistently. Like it's not like these are like there is diminishing returns to making this vehicle, and it is a token and whatever. So like the token, it gets airbended, all that stuff. Like it does. It's not a card without flaws, but I do think it's just the rate up front is pretty good here, and I don't really think there's a deck that I would realistically be cutting this from in white. You're just getting a solid 3 drop, and it has some threats to do additional things. Release to memory, 3 and a white for an instant. Exile target opponent's graveyard. For each creature card exile this way, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. So obviously this is just kind of too expensive. And even if it were cheaper, you wouldn't feel good about basically needing your opponent to be doing self mill. A lot of the self mill in this set actually kind of cares more about like lesson spells than it does about creatures, so that's kind of another interesting thing. Of oh, you know, I like what like they're doing them self mill thing, but the thing they actually care about milling is spells. So I'm not even sure that even in the decks, like even against the decks that this is supposed to be good against, if it's good, you have to make 4/1/1s for this to be worth it. And I just don't think that's going to be happening enough of the time for this to be a priority. Scout's Warning, single white for an instant. The next creature card you play this turn can be played as though it had flash. Draw a card. We just saw this. It's like Quicken, but for creatures, it's just not worth the card usually to make your creature 1 mana more expensive and give it flash. It just tends to not really be all that good. You can, it's more playable than some of the other tier 5 cards where it's like, it replaces itself, but there's no reason to really pick this card and put it in your deck. Like, you could play it and it wouldn't be a disaster, but it is not really super exciting. Teferi's Protection, or Ang's Shield, I don't know how to pronounce stuff. 2 and a white for an instant. Until your next turn, your life total can't change and you gain protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. Exile it. Yeah, I mean, Teferi's Protection, not a good limited card. Very similar to a lot of... There's just a lot of fogs on this bonus sheet in general. This is another one of them. Not super exciting. This is not worth the card. So... 3 Dreams, 4 and a white for a sorcery. Search your library for up to 3 aura cards with different names, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle. There's just not enough auras for this to really be good. There's the pacifism, and that's kind of it. But you can only get 1 of those, and then you need 3 auras. So, and you're paying 5 mana, and it's a sorcery. So just not super exciting. It's too hard to make anything work with this. Agent of Treachery. One of the things I will mention about this bonus sheet is that it is not evenly distributed amongst the colors. There's a lot more white cards for some reason. Now, a lot of the white, there's about the same number of actually good cards in each color, which is like 2 or 3. So that is something to note. But yeah, there are just like a bunch of random, like the color balance is not distributed evenly. 4 or 5 blue for a 2/3 when it enters, gain control of the target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. So this is a sick card with airbending, stuff like that. Agent of Treachery is just a very strong card. It is a 7-drop. It's probably a little bit washed compared to what it used to be. Agent of Treachery was one of the best cards in like in core set 21. I still think it's a very, very strong card because it is a gain control of your opponent's thing effect, which is just powerful. But it is a 7 mana card, and we have to account for that in 2025 with the costs. Could I put this in tier 1? Probably, and maybe I will regret not doing that. I just could imagine a reality where I'm taking one of the blue common 2-drops over it. Like, I could just imagine that being an actual thing an opinion that I actually have. Like, that could be a reality. So when I feel like that could be a reality, I'm gonna leave it in tier 2, and I'm not gonna feel too bad if it ends up being like the best card in the set. I don't think it will be, but it'll be good. Bribery. 3 blue for a sorcery. Search target opponent's library for a creature card and put that card on the battlefield under your control. Then that player shuffles. So Bribery is kind of weird. It's probably going to be a little overrated. Usually the best thing you're getting is the best case scenario is you're getting a 6-drop for 5 mana. Your average case scenario is you're getting a 5-drop for 5 mana or a 4-drop for 5 mana, which is okay. It's weird. It obviously depends a lot on how good your opponent's best creature is, and you don't have any control over that. So, while it is a fun card to play with and a not fun card to play against, it historically has been not the best card in either scenario. It just kind of is like, man, I hope my opponent has something really good, and they're like, I hope I drew my thing that's really good. I think it's fine. I don't think it's anything special. Would I probably draft it higher than tier 3 because it's fun to play with? Maybe that's something I would do. I could see myself doing that. Um, but I don't think it's like a particularly broken card. Clone. 3 in a blue, 0/0. You may have this creature enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Clones have just kind of been bad for a long time at this point, and the OG clone is not. It's just not really good anymore. So, well, if 1 clone wasn't good, Clone Legion, 7 blue blue for sorcery. For each creature target player controls, create a token that's a copy of that creature. For obvious reasons, this is just not very good. It maybe gets you even on board. That's the best case scenario of the thing that it does. And mostly you just can't cast it. So just not really a card that you can play in your deck. Force of Negation. 1 blue blue for instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So this would probably be my bet for card that like gets played the most despite being horrible. And then also, in addition to that, it's card that gets played the most despite being horrible, and also when the people who play it like actually cast it, it's like even worse because they're like actually pitching spells to it, which is something you should basically never do in limited or in this particular general draft. I don't want to talk about like Lucas cube and all that, but you get the picture. Force of Negation is not a good card in base set limited. It's too situational, and there's just too many spells that are creatures. And 2 for 1ing yourself is horrible. Imprisoned in the Moon. Speaking of 2 for 1ing yourself being horrible, 2 and a blue for an aura, enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. Enchanted permanent is a colorless land that taps to add colorless and loses all other types and abilities. So obviously, like, people love this thing and will play it. And actually, when I said the Force of Negation was the card that people were going to play and they shouldn't, this is actually probably even to be ahead of that because people love horrible removal spells that are worse than if you just didn't have a removal spell in a lot of spots. So that is what this is, giving your opponent a land. This is like Path to Exile, except it costs 3 instead of 1 and isn't an instant, and Path to Exile is already bad card and limited. I mean, bad is maybe a stretch. It's a mediocre, it's an overrated card. It's a mediocre card. This is considerably worse, and you should never play it. And if you find yourself thinking you should play it, you should change your perspective on that. Because there is no, I mean, if you're the most controlling deck of all time, there's a reality where you could like try to convince yourself that you're playing it in sealed maybe, but even then, like it's just not a thing. Intruder Alarm. 2 and a blue, enchantment. Creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps. Whenever a creature enters, untap all creatures. This obviously is just not something you can really realistically make work in limited. You just can't have a deck built around this well enough to make this worth playing. Mystic Remora, very similar. Single blue for an enchantment with cumulative upkeep 1, a mechanic that I'm not sure they've had to program on Arena before. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 4. Yeah, no, this is not good. Cumulative upkeep is not a thing that is reasonable to be paying, and your opponent can just simply not cast non-creature spells while you have this in play. So, don't play it. Prosperity, X and a blue sorcery. Each player draws X cards. You don't want to give your opponent free cards. Yes, sometimes you can use this to win the game and by milling them. That's what this was historically used for. Actually, that's not even true. But I don't want to get into it. This is not a good card. Don't play it. Jody Public Servant, 3 and a blue for 3/1. You may have it enter as a copy of another creature you control, except it has this creature's abilities, other abilities. The legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control, and has partner. Not a card that matters for limited. It is just another clone, but even worse than regular clone because it can't copy your opponent's stuff. Stand Still. 1 and a blue for an enchantment. When a player casts a spell, sacrifices enchantment. If you do, each of that player's opponents draws 3 cards. Very interesting in limited. We have it. It's the type of card that you never really know how it's going to play out until it's in play. Obviously, if you're behind, you can't play it, and if you're ahead, you're just going to get a 2-mana draw 3. So it's definitely interesting, and it's worth actually talking about because it's cool. If I saw this in a pack, I would try to draft it and try to make it work. Is it necessarily a good card? Probably no, because a lot of times You just kind of get in this spot where nobody plays a spell and the game just takes forever, and then somebody like, and then you just get decked by it. Like that's a thing that can actually happen. But if you're hitting your land drops, like if you ever play standstill and then your opponent and then you play a spell after playing standstill, um, your opponent just wins the game because they basically just get go 4 cards up on you. But if you play it while you're ahead and you like, if you even have like a 2/2 on board and you play standstill and they have nothing, you're gonna win that game, right? Because you're getting a 2 mana draw 3. So like it's foreseeable that you could get to a position where standstill is good for you. Obviously, this is the type of card that is dangerous. It is a dangerous card to play because while it is a 2 mana draw 3, your opponent, like, you better be sure. Like, you better be really sure with standstill. Training Grounds, single blue for an enchantment. Activated abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate this effect can't reduce the cost to less than 1 mana. It's just generally that this is not really doing enough for the card that you're playing. Yes, there are activated abilities, specifically like a lot of water bending, exhaust stuff in the format, so it's not as if um, you can't do something with this, but I am not excited about it. Visions of Beyond. Oh, I didn't even like rate this one. Hold on. Okay, now that I did that. So it's a cantrip, you can kind of play it. It's for, like, there is enough self mill in the set that you could actually like realistically be like, oh, sometimes I draw 3 cards. Like that actually is a thing. Oh, I guess the graveyard has to have 20. It's not library. You're kind of never getting there then. Because putting 20 cards in your library, putting 20 cards in your graveyard in a graveyard is going to be pretty tough. At the end of the day, it's kind of a cantrip. I'm just gonna leave it. It's bad. Don't try to make this work. But you could try to. Whatever. I don't really care. Black Sun Zenith, X black black sorcery. Put X -1/-1 counters on each creature. Shuffle Black Sun Zenith into its owner's library. So you're overpaying a lot, right? But the nice thing about this is that even if it doesn't kill your opponent's like whole board, it does reduce the size of the creatures permanently, which is pretty nice. Um, Yeah, that's kind of all I got. It's just an expensive Wrath that you don't actually really want to shuffle back into your deck. But like if you pay 5 mana for -2/-3, it's not the worst rate. I it, eh, I just don't like this type of card. I'm not excited about this. Bloodbender's Rise. Single black for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on this enchantment. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if this enchantment has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life if you do gain 2 life. So, I'm trying to wrap my head around this card, right? Does it do nothing a lot? Yeah, it does nothing some percentage of the time. But, I mean, the thing is this, right? Like, your opponent's not going to be paying life for a lot in this set. Obviously, there's a couple of black cards that cause them to pay life, but there's not like a ton of that. So you're going to have to connect on 3 combat steps for 2 or more damage. Which isn't, like, not achievable. And the upside is really strong. Because basically they can't kill you once you turn this on, because if a spell goes into their graveyard, like if they cast a spell, if they mill a card, if a creature of theirs dies, you drain them for 2. So if you actually manage to transform this, the game becomes almost unlosable from that point. So but it is not easy to transform, in the sense that you're going down a card. Like, you play this on turn 1, you're down a card, and you have to find a way to get 3 separate instances of damage through on your opponent without costing yourself the game. And so that's a really tricky spot. This is the card I could see myself being like very wrong on. Like, this might just be good. It is a reprint, so presumably like people have played with this card and know whether or not it's good. It is also a card that is primed for people to overrate it. People like very, success oriented when it comes to these type of cards. So we'll see what the numbers are on this. I would try it. I would certainly try it. I'm not optimistic because you are going down a card and whatever, but there's also just the reality of you can save this and then play it only when you have an attack, but then sometimes you just don't have attacks the whole game. Like sometimes you have to block and then you lose the game because you're down a card and that's not good. So I don't know. I'm not excited about it. Cruel Tutors. Tuna Black, Sorcery. Search your library for a card. Shuffle, put that card on top. You lose 2 life. Obviously horrible. I don't really need to go into that many details as to why. It's just not good. Paying an extra 3 mana, 2 life in a card to cast your best spell is not worth it. So, not good. Noxious Gearhulk, 4 black, black, 5/4 menace. When it enters, you may destroy another target creature. If a creature is destroyed this way, you gain life equal to its toughness. This is obviously busted. It's going to be one of the best cards in the set. It might be the best card in the set. Gearhulk is very good and still sometimes even underrated at times, even in some sets, but it's just completely broken. Blasphemous Act, 8 in a red sorcery that costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. It deals 13 damage to each creature. So then the problem with this is there's a lot of cases with Wraths where you're like, oh, my opponent has 3 creatures on board and I'd like to cast my Wrath. This costs 6 mana in that spot. And that's a really bad, like your Wrath not working in that particular spot is pretty bad. Like you kind of need your Wrath to work when it's a 3-for-1. And this doesn't really work when it's a 3-for-1. It's great when your opponent is really far ahead. And that's kind of it. If your opponent is only marginally ahead, it's not actually that good. And it's like if a good player will sort of play around it by not playing into your Wrath, and then your Wrath is even worse, and it's just kind of it compounds how bad it is. So I don't love Blasphemous Act. I don't think it's completely unplayable, but I don't love it. Azula Flame of Ember Island, 3 in a red for a 1/1. You can tap it to destroy a target creature of your choice, then destroy target creature of an opponent's choice, which I assume means you can also target this one. Activate only during your turn before attackers are declared. Really strange additional text on that, but fine. Yeah, I mean, this is just very bad, right? You're paying 4 mana to have a 1/1 in play that can maybe remove something at the cost of you lose your best creature. So, not good. Dockside Extortionist, 1 in a red for a 2 or a 1/2. When it enters, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. So, this is not going to do anything unlimited. Congratulations to the Commander players out there for this bonus sheet being exclusively for you. Very happy for you. Another win for the most catered to group of individuals in the Magic community, and the reason for many of Magic's bad decisions. Let's continue on with Fervor. 2 in a red for an enchantment. Creatures you control have haste. We've seen various versions of this effect actually recently where they've tried improving upon it to make it playable. There have been some almost successes and a lot of failures. So the original version of just giving stuff haste for 3 mana is not going to be on the side of the success half of that equation. Humble Defector, 1 in a red, 2/1. You can tap it to draw 2 cards. Target opponent gains control of this creature. Activate only during your turn. So this is really weird. I don't really think this is good. You're basically just giving your opponent stuff, but like maybe you just remove it after you give it to them. I don't know, man. Then you're up 1 card net. You're basically it's a 2 mana 2/1 that drew a card, and then you killed it with a removal spell. Is that even good? I'm not sure that it's good. It doesn't seem good. It seems okay at best. There is that one rare in red white where at the beginning of combat it's stuff that's like whatever. So that's kind of a combo. I would probably play it if I had that guy, but other than that, I don't know. Not. I mean, you always get to choose not to do it, but it's a 2 mana 2/1 which doesn't do anything. So presumably you want to be clicking the activate ability button if you have this card in your deck. Insurrection. 5 red, red, red for a sorcery. Untap all creatures and gain control of them until end of turn. They gain haste until end of turn. Yeah, this is just too expensive. Yeah, you probably win the game when you cast it, but 8 mana, and sometimes you still don't even win when you cast it, is not worth playing. Lightning Bolt, single red for an instant, deals 3 damage to any target. Unfortunately, Lightning Bolt was a little bit washed in Final Fantasy. It was not. I rated it in tier 1 in that set. It was actually only tier 2, statistically, and in terms of how good it was. I'll be dead and buried before I, in a set review, don't rate Lightning Bolt in tier 1. Like, you're not gonna convince me. It could underperform for 6 sets in a row, and it's still getting put in tier 1 every single time. Um, I simply don't care. I simply don't care. It's my favorite card of all time, so it is getting put in tier 1. And it is a good card. Is it tier 1 worthy? I don't know. Mirrorwing Dragon, 3 red, red, 4/5 with flying. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only this creature, that player copies that spell for each other creature they control that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. So obviously this makes removing this dragon very difficult unless it is the only creature on the board. If your opponent has like a creature and they target with this with a removal spell, then they are also removing their own creature. That's really good. This is just a good dragon. Obviously, sometimes it's just the only creature on the board, and then it just dies. But 5 mana 4/5 dragon is pretty good. It doesn't have haste or anything, but it's hard to remove. I should just put it in tier 1 because it just is like the thing is there's always like some weird interaction that's more common than you'd think. I don't know what it is. Where like this is bad for you somehow. Um so that's something to think about, is that sometimes this is actually still bad for you even though it seems like it's removing all their creatures. I don't know what the thing that is in this. Like, you can also target it with your own thing, and then I'm just gonna put it in tier 1. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. It's just a big dragon. Rending Volley, single red, instant, can't be countered. Deals 4 damage to target white or blue creature. Now, there is a reality where this is kind of main deckable. Because of how good I think blue is in this set. Like, there's maybe like a world. But the thing with blue is like creatures never the most creature dense of colors. So still, even in that case, I'm not sure this is gonna really be a playable card. Fine out of the board, though. Searing Blood, red, red, instant. It deals 2 damage to target creature. When that creature dies this turn, it deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. Not a great removal spell, but if you are playing mono red, it is sort of a thing. Hitting your opponent for 3 is not nothing. Just the casting cost is very restrictive. Shattering Spree, single red for a sorcery with replicate for a red. Destroy target artifact. Just not main deckable. Again, even out of the sideboard, probably not worth playing in this particular set. Volcanic Torrent, 4 and a red sorcery with Cascade. It deals X damage to each creature and planeswalker your opponent's control, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. So, obviously it's going to do at least 2 damage because you're casting a second spell with this, but it's just so hard to get this to line up the way you want, and the Cascade is random, so like sometimes you actually don't even want to cast the spell that the Cascade hits. It's not super common, but it does happen. I'm not in on this. I'm gonna have to just get you're just gonna get absolutely savaged by this sometimes, and you have to kind of be willing to tank that and just move on. Warstorm Surge, 5 and a red enchantment. Whenever a creature you control enters, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. I should maybe put this like a little bit higher. It is like 6 mana when you untap with it. Every one of your creatures turns into Flametongue Kavu, which is pretty good. But man, does it do nothing. Man, does it do a lot of nothing before it wins you the game instantly. Like, in red, you play this on 6, and there's just incidental hate for artifacts and enchantments. It could get airbended. It could get, like, there's a bunch of different things that can happen to this enchantment that I'm not excited about. It's fun. It's a fun card, but it is 6 mana to do nothing. So yeah, I'm off it. Maybe it'll destroy me or something. Beastmaster Ascension. 2 and a green enchantment. When a creature you control attacks, and we put a quest counter on this enchantment. As long as this enchantment has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +5/+5. It's hard to imagine a game where you've attacked with 7 different creatures over the course of the game, and you didn't win already. Such that this giving your creatures +5/+5 was good. I guess the one thing is you could attack with like you could get like 3 reasonable attacks, and then you could attack all, and then all your creatures have +5/+5. Because I think that's how this works. It seems like you get 1 counter per creature. That's what it looks like. So maybe tier 5 is too harsh. If you do go wide enough, but then you're spending your 3-drop slot is just so nothing for like 4 turns, and it's just like I don't know about that. So yeah, I'm gonna just stay down on it. Elemental Bond, 2 and a green enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with power 3 or greater enters, draw a card. So interestingly, we've had Garruk's Uprising, which is this, but for creatures power 4 or greater, and it gives your creatures trample, and that card's bad. But we've had Takasia's Welcome, which was this card, but for creatures mana value 3 or less, and you draw a card. And that card was quite good in Brothers War, and also when they reprinted it. And I think this is closer to Takasia's Welcome than it is to Garruk's Uprising. 3 is just so much less than 4 power-wise. It hits like 60% of your creatures instead of like 40% of your creatures or 30% of your creatures. Such a huge swing in terms of this doing something versus not doing something. It's uncapped. You can do it as many times as you want per turn. The one thing with this is it does not work with like Earthbend, a mechanic I'm already kind of down on. So that's a concern. But this is an engine that I think is pretty achievable. Like, this is a thing that works. It's not quite as good as Takasia's Welcome, which was maybe a tier 2 card. So maybe we move this down to tier 3 and just kind of live with that. I feel pretty comfortable with that. The Great Hen, 7 green for an artifact. It costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. You can tap it for 2 green and you gain 2 life. Whenever a non-token creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. This, of course, is one of the most powerful mana rocks ever printed. If limited, it basically wins the game when you cast it. So, yes, it's hard to cast sometimes, but in most game states, you can get this into play on turn 4 or 5. And if you can do that, you're going to win the game. So, yep, that's really all of it. If you get this into play, you basically win. So. Heartbeat of Spring, 2 and a green, enchantment. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land produced. You're basically giving your opponent a bunch of free mana, so I wouldn't recommend that. You're down a card, they're up, they get to go first. Yeah, don't play it. Don't play it. Heroic Intervention, 1 and a green for an instant. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. It's just too expensive. You're giving no stat boosts. You're not winning any extra combats. You're just paying 2 mana for this effect, which is not worth 2 mana. Return to the Wildspeaker, 4 and a green for an instant. Choose 1. Draw cards equal to the greatest power of among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +2/+3 until end of turn. A lot of your creatures in this set are humans, but there are, you can use the Earthbend to make it to draw a bunch of cards with this. I don't think it's super exciting, but 5 mana to draw 4 cards sometimes is like okay-ish. So that's kind of how I feel about this. Rites of Flourishing, 2 and a green, enchantment. At the beginning of each player's end draw step, that player draws an additional card. Each player may play an additional land on each of their turns. You just don't want to do this. Again, similar to some other card, like similar to Heartbeat of Spring. You're the one paying the card up front. Your opponent just gets free stuff. Don't do that. Don't give them free stuff. Yeah. Taunting Challenge, 1 green for a sorcery. All creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. You really need a lot of things to go right for this to actually do something. So don't try to make it work. It's just not worth trying to make work. Captain Sisay, 2 green for a 2/2. You can tap it to search your library for a legendary creature, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. There just aren't enough legends for this to do anything, and even if there were, it's a 4 mana 2/2. It dies to the shock, so pretty bad. Don't play it. Eladamri's Call, green for an instant. Search your library for a creature card, reveal that card, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. So these tutors like this are never really that good. you have to add 2 mana on the cost of whatever the creature you're tutoring for is, and there are some for which that is worth it, but many of them in the set that is not worth it. So I would not recommend playing this unless you have very, very good green or white creature, but probably green because I don't think there's enough good enough white creatures to justify it. But there are green creatures that maybe you could justify playing this, but I don't think it is worth it still, probably. Fevered Visions, 1 blue red for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's end step, that player draws a card. If the player is your opponent and and has 4 or more cards in hand, this enchantment deals 2 damage to that player. So, again, with the giving your opponent free resources stuff, this is kind of sick in like a slower mirror. If the format turns out to be really slow, this is probably good because you do have some inevitability. They like have to try to like get everything into play. But in a lot of formats, this would be quite bad. So I'm not expecting this to be good, of course. Um, the one good thing about this is you do get the card first. So like you play this on turn 3, you get to draw a card, then your opponent gets to draw a card, which is not necessarily how all of these type of cards work. But generally giving your opponent free cards is bad, and I would not recommend it. But it is this one again. This one is kind of a thing. There's sort of spots where I could see it. You do get the card first. It's not so crazy to believe that it could be good for you. Join the dance. 2 green white for sorcery. Create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens and a flashback for 3 green white. This is probably the most random reprint of all time. It's a card from Midnight Hunt. I don't really. This is just the strangest reprint ever. It's gonna be fine though. You're getting you just get a lot of stuff for a solid card. Yeah, weird reprint. Fine card. Coma, Cosmos Serpent, 3 green, blue, blue, 6/6. Can't be countered. At the beginning of each upkeep, you create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. You can sacrifice another serpent to tap target permanent. Its activated abilities can't be activated this turn, and also you can make Coma indestructible. So yeah, Coma is one of the biggest limited bombs of all time. It's going to be probably the best card in the set from a win rate perspective. A lot of those type cards out there, you should just almost always pick this card. Try to make it work. Zuko Redeemed. Green-white hybrid for a 1/1. You can pay 2 and a green-white hybrid to tap it and create a 1/1. And you can pay 4 and 2 green-white hybrids. For each creature token you control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. This is just really, really slow. And it's a 1 mana 1/1, and it doesn't really block all that well. So, not super excited by this. Cityscape Leveler. 8 colorless mana for an 8/8 with trample. When you cast the spell, whenever this creature attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token. Unearth for 8, colorless. Yep, this was a really, really good card in Brothers War. I expect it to be a really, really good card here. It goes in literally every single deck, and is just super hard to deal with. Meteorite, 5 colorless for an artifact. When it enters, it deals 2 damage to any target. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. It's just a bad mana rock. 5 mana for this effect is just too much. People will try to. The last time this was in the set was Dominaria United. It was horrible there. People played it, didn't make it good. Suntile of the Infinite. Now this is a card. 2 colorless mana for an artifact with the ability 1 tap, end the turn, activate only during your turn. I don't really have anything to say about this, so I'm just going to move on. I simply can't believe that it is a card that has ever been printed. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand. The Boy in the Iceberg, also known as Dark Depths. It has 10 ice counters on it, and you can pay 3 colorless to remove an ice counter from it. When it has no ice counters on it, sacrifice it. If you do, create Merit Lage, which is a 20/20 with flying and indestructible. However, it is not hexproof, so it will just get airbended and you will lose the game. Yeah, this is awful. Dark Depths is not good enough for limited. Even Cube these days, Dark Depths is not good. It was some are saying it was never good, and those people are more likely right than not. Fabled Passage, land. You can tap, sacrifice it to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then you can untap it if you control 4 or more lands. Yep, this is just good fixing. It's evolving wild with upside. It's good. There's nothing really to say about it. Sunbaked Canyon. You can tap it and pay 1 life to add red or white, and you can pay 1 and sacrifice it to draw a card. Yeah, I mean, this is... they didn't do the whole cycle of this. They just did Sunbaked Canyon. And it's a fine value land, but you know, it's a pain land, so you really gotta kind of pick your spots. But I don't think there's a red-white deck I wouldn't play this in. Like, I think you're gonna play it in every red-white deck. I just don't think it's a priority. I'm not sure you would play it in every red or white deck, though. So that's something to think about. Some people will, though. Some people would advocate for that position. And I don't think that position's necessarily wrong, but... Tarnished Citadel. You can tap to add colorless. You can tap to add 1 mana of any color. This land deals 3 damage to you. This is too high of a cost for fixing. Paying 3 life to cast your spells is not reasonable. Now, yeah, this one does have a buyout of being like, oh, well, I can tap for colorless, but that's... Yeah, I mean, if you ever have to pay 3 life twice with this, you're basically just losing that game. So you can't start the game at 14. That's just not realistic. So I would not recommend playing this. Treetop Village. It enters tapped. You can tap to add green, and has the ability 1 and a green to become a 3/3 ape creature with trample until end of turn. It is still a land. A classic creature land. Always been pretty good. It's going to continue to be pretty decent. I think you will pretty much always play this in any green deck. The tap land cost is definitely worth the cost of 3 mana essentially to have a 3/3 with trample sometimes, and also, there are weird things you can do with this where if you put counters on it, you can activate the ability and then it gets base power and toughness 3/3, and then it also has the earthbend counters on it, and then it has trample. So that's kind of a cool thing to do with Treetop Village. And I expect it, and that's why I don't know, I like Treetop Village. Treetop Village, nostalgic card, good reprint, fun. And the last card on the bonus sheet is Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. Enters tapped whenever a mountain you control enters. If you control at least 5 other mountains, you may have this land deal 3 damage to any target, and it taps for red. This land is not worth the cost of playing a tap land in your deck, unless you are mono red, and even then, you need to have 6 other mountains for this to do anything. So I would not recommend putting it in your deck because it doesn't do anything and it's a tap land. But that is it. That is it for the bonus sheet, and that's it for the set review. So. Thank you for joining me. If you have enjoyed, please feel free to subscribe. Check out the other set review content. There will be more Avatar content in the future. So I will see you then.